How do we live with energy, resilience, joy? I'm with the awesome Tony Riddle, who's been a big inspiration in my life to help us understand how we can have more energy in our bodies, to live with less injuries. And Tony, I'd love for you to give us the gift of showing us some of the key insights and practices that you use to help people reduce injury, live with energy.
Yeah, I guess I call them like nature's cure. So if you think of, we're standing now, really easy one is to understand, well, how do I stand in a way that isn't going to compromise me? And we could say, well, I lift my head, I lift my chest, and I plant my feet and I get grounded. That's one influence, isn't it? Just being really present in the way that we stand. But also to understand that standing is a complex movement. Equal to walking is complex and running is complex. So what's beneath that is then the complex movement is only good as the foundational movements.
Yes.
So I think what's really simple for people to practice is to get on the ground and get back to the ground. Remove the chair for some period of the day or the whole day if you can,
Yeah.
or for Netflix binging, whatever that looks like, but to get a practice on the ground.
Yeah.
So that can prove quite uncomfortable for some. So it's going to be the length of time that you might choose to be in some of these positions that we're about to go through.
Yeah.
First assessment for me is, can someone squat? So I'd say, George, show me a flat-footed squat. And what does that look like? You know, and then I can see through just analysing this that I know there's a little bit of dorsiflexion that's missing in the ankle, so I know I have to rotate in, which would be compromising for the knee. So the squat is then, for me, the more complex movement for you right now. Yeah. But equally is a foundation of complex standing. So I need to strip this back and give you prerequisites of squatting. So we could say, well, what's the first stage of that? Well, it might be kneeling, right? Just kneeling on the ground. And could I then set a timer for a period of time?
Yeah.
And the beauty of this, already I'm starting to get an understanding of how to hinge in my hips. Yeah. I can learn how to stack my head, my chest and my pelvis. Yeah. So we could even say this is like very basic core stability.
Yeah.
And how do we get a strong core? Well, we firstly need a mobile hip, right? The hip is a ball and socket. So to have a stable pelvis would be to have mobile hips. Otherwise I move in my pelvis to compensate for the lack of movement in my hips. So I can learn to hinge, very simple. I can then tackle the flexibility in the feet and the ankles by tucking my toes under, which is also known like a heel sit. So I can rest my butt back on my heels now in that position.
Yeah, nice.
And again, for some who have maybe been in footwear for a period of time that's quite narrow in the toe box, this might be screaming right now. Painful in the toes. So we go, hinge through the hips, less painful. Moment in the pain cave, discomfort, back out again. And we could look at things like breath.
Yeah.
Where we could start to think, well, if I lengthen my exhale, it's associated with lowering the heart rate and the blood pressure. So as I drop down feeling discomfort, how about I breathe through that process and bring my awareness to my breath, not what might be the signal of pain.
Yeah, nice.
Is it as painful?
Yeah.
Possibly not. So then we know, I can maybe train that in and spend longer in the breath and more awareness. Or what if I then stay here for a couple of cycles of breath, or through cycles of breath, you know? So that's like two kneeling patterns. I would then go like back to feet under, or toes pointing back, and then bring one foot up. And I'll show this like to the camera so we get an idea of this. So I'm going to hinge from side to side, almost like a kneeling penguin, right? Yeah. Playful, right? Playful kneeling penguin. So as I go over and I commit to this hand, this side of my body is now much lighter.
Yeah.
So I can do that with that leg, but more importantly, I can bring it here. And that foot can exist underneath me. And then if I go out this way, I can load it. And what I'm doing now is challenging where we were lacking flexibility earlier.
Yeah, it's my ankles.
So this is a single kneel, but it's also a single squat.
Yeah.
So this is the squat, and this is the single leg version of that. So I can then start to train in or learn more about increasing that mobility and range within the ankle. And a way to do it is to start letting the knee pass the big toe back in. What are the sensations? Am I having to lift my heel? If I'm lifting my heel, I'm going too far. And can I just play with those edges of discomfort in the ankle again? And then a number of reps. Or can we get to the point where we're just loading like that? Netflix is on, yeah? Or I could be reading, yeah? Or I could be eating.
Yes.
So simple, right?
Yeah, super simple.
And then from there, it's too long, this is going numb, or this is too challenging. I take my hand back over here. This leg's now light. I can bring it under. I transfer my weight over. This leg is light, and I bring it back under. And it's quite fluid, so it could even look like, a number of repetitions that we could build in.
Nice.
you know, so it doesn't have to feel like exercise. Really, they are rest positions.
Yes.
So we need to learn how they become more restful. And I found play a much better way of entering than thinking of things about being rigid exercise.
For sure. Like this practice has been super important in my life. Like I now don't have furniture at home because of what you share. And I find just to get that free flexibility where, I'm opening up my hips, I'm working on my ankle mobility, all of it. And, you know, I can still be doing my work. I can be watching 100%. TV.
I think where you can go with it, like so from this position, I could be taking my weight here, rolling the ankle and falling into a side sit. Take my hand, I'm back up into a kneeling position. I roll out with the ankle, I'm back in a side sit, I'm back to this position. Yeah? Nice. You know, or this could sweep round this way and then pop out that way and then go here. And then from here we can simply stand up and walk off.
Yes. You
know, so once you kind of learn each one of these, you can start a bit like within a Tai Chi practice, you're learning this part, and then suddenly it would weave together.
It's a flow.
It's a flow. Yes. So I can learn, from standing, I need to get down to the ground, I could go here. If I lower my knees, I'm back to the heel sit that we had earlier. If I go up with my hips, I can then flatten my feet back here and we're back to the kneeling position that we had. We can go hand, foot. From here, rolling the ankle to dropping into a side sit. If that's too difficult to get into that sit, you can go out the back. So it's hand and I drop in this way. From here, we could open up hips some more and just, and from there I could step to here. You know, and I could lean in that way and lean back out again and drop back in. So again, it can become quite playful.
Beautiful.
Other sits might be long sits. I could be in this, like a straddle, formerly known as like straddling, or a long sit with a side sit that's within it, or this sit, you know, or from here to here, 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 to here. It's playful, right?
Nice. What are some of the main blockers that people that you work with share about what prevents them from getting onto the ground and doing that? Because it has so many benefits.
I think sometimes it's possibly how people would perceive them. You know, they're up against that. It can feel like there's a socially extreme element to it, but we're really just sitting on the floor. And for many cultures around the world, that's what they do. And also some of the practices that we feel drawn to, like yoga or some of the martial arts, they were without chairs. So to really be authentic within a practice like that would be to take it onto the ground. Again, if we look at the 95% of our existence as a nature-based species, there weren't chairs, we were interacting with the ground. And there is no yoga or martial arts or chiropractors or physios in those environments. You know, so that ticks that box, I would imagine.
Wasn't needed.
Again, it's environment. So if I have a chair there, chances are I'm going to want to sit in it. So I have to be able to put boundaries in place or create the space and say, well, if I want to watch something or I'm working, how about I do an hour on the ground and just play with the different positions? Could I set a timer? It might be the flexibility, it might be the mobility that's challenging or the strength to get there, but it will come from just interacting with the ground. You'll gain the range that you're looking for, perhaps in your Pilates class or your yoga class, by simply interacting with the ground again. You know, I can get as much flexibility within an hour's work on the ground as what I would on an hour on the mat. And then you can say, well, how much time am I spending on my screen and how could I stretch that? What could that look like over a day? And think of how embodied you become through that practice.
Super powerful, and I really invite you beautiful viewers to reflect on this, like how can we be on the ground more, because it's been really powerful for me. We're both barefoot at the moment. And
we are.
That's something that you share is important. Why should we be barefoot more?
Many influences really. We have grounding at the moment. We're understanding more about grounding. For me, there's many layers. So there's the physical expression of the foot. You know, that it has 26 bones, 33 articulations, combination of like muscles, tendons, ligaments reaching 100.
Wow.
And then you've got the nerve endings. So it's extra receptors, like 200,000 in one foot, the equivalent of what you have in your hand, except we put them away in narrow toe boxes with lots of rubber. Divorced from that sensory experience, but also weakening the structure of the foot. And I say weakening, but weakening not just because we should have really strong feet, but we should have a really strong understanding of our feet. Understanding. So it's a climbing foot, it's a gripping foot, It can mould around different terrain, and we'll have a play on the stones in a second to really understand about where the feet can go. But again, there's a physiological component to that. There's also like neuroplasticity, for instance. Like I'm receiving information from an environment, and so there's other senses that are at play. There's visual, there's vestibular stuff going on for me, but there's also where I feel perhaps my weight is right now. Yeah, I'm experiencing gravity through my feet. I'm experiencing this terrain through my feet, and different terrain through my feet. It's never going to be the same lawn. As we have the saying, you'll never put your hand in the same river twice, right? The same expression could be said for this grass right now as it's growing, and we're always getting a new expression and new information, which we could say is rewiring our brain in a sense, right? So we can rewire the movement and the behavior of the foot, but we can also rewire our brain in the process. There's then also the microbiome, like changing different expressions, being out in the woodland versus maybe more of a manicured existence of a lawn, or the sand of a beach, or the trail, or whatever that looks like. Each one of those, the biome's different. You're inhaling a new biome from other areas, could even say through inhaling up through your hooter, but you'd also be experiencing that through your feet.
That's a new one for me, because I wouldn't have thought that you would be able to absorb the microbiome through the feet, or like to be in relationship
like having your hands in the soil. So there's a study there in Finland with kindergarten kids. And they rewilded the playground. So it was a traditional kind of rubberized concrete existence, and they brought forest floors in, they brought planter boxes, and the kids were allowed to interact with it. And they showed a significant change in their microbiome. And this is just 90 minutes a day for 28 days in their microbiome of the skin and the gut. Yeah. So it's there, right? So there's plenty of studies out there to suggest that. And of course, we're absorbing that. So there's the grounding effect, there's a neuroplasticity effect, there's a microbiome effect, and there's also all those muscles, tendons, and ligaments that are at play.
Powerful. I guess one of the fears for people is that they can't walk on lots of different surfaces. There might be sharp things, there might be stones. And I think that I'm a bit nervous about walking on some stones, but you're telling me it's possible.
Well, I think the first stage really is to think about, well, if I'm rewilding any animal, would I go, right, here you go, they're straight into the wild? You know, and how many people actually need to be walking over stones and rocks? So we question that. So I would start on something maybe more familiar. It could be, for some it might even be in the home they're not familiar even being barefoot. And then it's right, can I stretch that out into the garden? Can I be barefoot on the grass? And you'll already be amazed at how that feels, like just the influence of that and the experience you'll gain. And then from the grass, what does mud look like? What does root systems feel like? And just start to gain more awareness. I think there's an element of having to open the feet up and becoming more aware of them. So can you kind of splay your toes when you're standing? There's plenty of exercises out there under this label of toga, which is like yoga for your feet. Toe separators you can be wearing. I think, you know, if being barefoot's too much, then look at minimal footwear, because at least you're getting the expression there. You're just removing the compliance or the rubber that's dumbing down that sensory information that you'll be receiving. You're not going to get the microbiome influence, but there's other things at play. So other cues would be to think about the feet as like a rocker. So you can rock, you roll from your heel to your ankle to your forefoot. So there's 3 like rocking actions. Heel, ankle, forefoot. And in walking we go heel, ankle, forefoot. In running we go ankle, forefoot, and in sprinting forefoot. So it's like those 3 rocking actions. You'll see them in our complex movements of walking, running, and sprinting.
Can you say running again is ankle, forefoot?
It's more of a, so imagine I'm landing in that shape. In sprinting, I'm landing in that shape. So I'm just up on the 3rd rocker. In walking, boom, it's a heel, ankle, forefoot, heel, ankle, forefoot. Running is ankle, foot, so I go ankle, forefoot.
Okay, got you.
And then it's like this, ankle, forefoot, ankle, forefoot, ankle, forefoot, ankle, forefoot.
Do you ever land your heels when you're running?
I don't really focus on landing so much, and I think it's also what's really important, what we discovered here is the foundational movements and the complex movements. So my head is a huge weight. The further forward my head is, the further forward I have to stride, otherwise I'll fall over. So if I'm running around with my head forward, I have to stride out in front of me. Therefore I now have to spend more time on the ground dealing with the forces. If I can keep my head up and my chest up, I can land underneath me. And equal to walking, I can walk where my feet appear to be underneath me. And how am I moving forward if that's the case? I'm simply just allowing my posture to fall into the space, and I'm changing my feet beneath it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah?
Mm.
So with walking, it's like thinking, firstly, can I open up my visual field?
Yes.
Yeah, because we talked about breath, and there's other ways of down regulation, which could be just simply opening up a visual field and I see the environment differently. That can already lower heart rate and blood pressure. Is that going to be important for walking over terrain that terrifies me? Yes. So then we can think about slowing down the breath. And when we're walking, is to keep the head up. And why is the head up? Again, it minimizes the amount of contact time I have to have through my feet.
Yes.
And then when I do walk, I think about picking my feet up rather than putting my feet down.
That was a key insight that I've learned with you. Is that I would often think, how can I roll the feet? How can I land? But actually, it's the picking up. So there's less.
Yeah, thinking about the feet actually just being, there's nothing in the foot, it's super loose. And my role is to just simply pick the foot up. Now, when you first kind of go through this practice, you feel like I'm walking like this. Yeah? But we're really just, again, does this look any different?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm doing is I'm thinking about pulling my ankle up. My feet are super soft. And again, I want to be, I had this conversation about leading with the heart, right? And keep your head up. So it's like lead with the heart, feet follow.
Yes.
Yeah? And just take in that environment, you know? And then we can start to put that on a harder surface. So this just so happens, here's a hard surface
That
we made
happens to
later.
be just a very painful surface, just so close.
So with this stuff,
Right, can I just say, walking on stones barefoot is an edge for me. And yeah, let's.
yeah, so we're gonna play with the same thing. So it's
All
like,
right.
can I breathe?
Okay.
Can I slow everything down?
Stones are not painful.
So think about your own practice, right, with Tai Chi. Can you already soften?
Soften.
And is there that elasticity in your knees?
Yes.
Yes, can we soften the breath?
Yes.
Can we relax the belly?
Yes.
Relax the jaw? Like just entering meditation or breath, can you find that now?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah? And already it's in.
Yes.
And then we're thinking about like taking in this rather than looking down. The moment I look down, which is where you want to go, because we're terrified of the stones.
Yes, yes.
But what that will do, ramp up the anxiety a bit, but it also means my head's forward, I then have to spend more time on this foot. Yeah, and it creates a longer lever, and then I've got to wait all this time before I can get to the next one.
Yeah.
Keep your head up and think about now keeping your feet underneath you, and relax and breathe, and just pick your feet up as if you're rolling through the feet.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's fine.
And can you have a listen? Right, so you stop. Can I be really stealth?
Yeah.
So what we're allowing
Stealth
is
mode.
that softness and that elasticity that you've been working through other practices with.
Yes.
Can you bring that into walking now? So I'm like bouncy teenager almost. There's a softness to it.
Yeah, nice. I like it.
Yes, you make friends of it rather than
And I
this
think
is like rigid and this is going to hurt.
I think
right?
so much of it is mental as well, because actually right now this is fine for me, but just the idea of it is actually the thing that then creates the tension, and then I start bracing, and then I just run away from it and don't continue.
Yeah, and then you can like ramp things up. You could be like, what does jumping look like on a harder surface? You know, because if you're landing like this, then you're going to hit hard on hard.
Yeah.
Whereas if I can be super loose, because the rocks aren't going to give.
Yeah.
You have to give.
I have to give.
Because it's hard, right?
Yes.
So you have to become soft and compliant.
Yes.
Equal to if this was soft and compliant, we'd probably become more stiff.
Yes.
Which really explains a lot of the kind of injuries that are associated with running now, is because this huge bit of rubber just makes all our tendon and ligament structures really stiff and rigid, right?
Yes.
So then running is just a series of single-legged hops. So running, you would simply be pulling again, and it becomes quite soft.
Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, powerful. So for us to recap that, to soften, to stay upright, and then to roll, and that rocking motion, and to then think about the foot pulling up as opposed to
And relax
landing.
with it. But
Relax.
we're applying it to something like this. I would say, if I go into London,
Yes.
which isn't very often these days, and if I enter around London, it's like watching hyperlapse.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, and that can be quite triggering. So again, I will go, can I slow my breath? Can I keep my head up?
Yes.
And can I just roll through my feet? And it enables me to be more conscious within that environment, not just over the stones that are triggering me, but maybe in a different environment even.
Yeah.
Same rules apply really,
Yeah.
If you want to call them rules.
Yeah.
And then we went through breath with that. So that could even be that same light, slow, deep breath, so the people around you aren't hearing your but it's a really light, as if you have a feather, imaginary feather underneath your nose.
Yes.
And the idea is not to inhale the feather or to blow the feather away. So you can barely, like, which one's the concave and which one's the convex? It's this one or this one? You get the idea. So there's a convex or a concave.
Yes.
Excuse me if I've got the order of those.
My physics is off on that.
But it's thinking like, this would be the inhale if I was, whereas you want to be like,
yeah, yes.
so it's hard, you can hardly notice someone breathing.
Beautiful.
And that light, slow, deep, what you'll possibly notice through that is you'll get more saliva because you're more restful and digested, which is that parasympathetic state. And we're being a much calmer process then to tackle things that could be kneeling on the ground, sitting on the ground, our reaction to people thinking of whatever they might be about us walking around barefoot or whatever that looks like, not just the terrain that we're interacting with.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome, Tony. Yeah, that, like, the breath, power of the breath, down regulation, relaxing, floor sitting, barefoot. These ideas have been really, really important for me to feel more energized, have less injuries. So yeah, I really encourage you beautiful viewers to consider getting deeper into this, and Tony's work is really powerful. And we've just had a beautiful conversation going on both of our podcasts, and so there will be some links in the descriptions if you want to come and follow us and join for the conversation. Appreciate your teachings, and yeah, thank you for your guidance.
Thank you.